When we were in the first grade, or maybe even before, we learned our ABCs. Now, back when I was a boy, I think it was the first grade. But anyway, we started with Dick and Jane and Spot the dog and learned our ABCs. Here I am now, 70 years old, and I'm going to talk about the ABCs again. I'm going to talk about a system. Aubrey Daniels wrote a book about this called Performance Management. Aubrey Daniels. It's performance management. Right? He said you can do it with a 3-step process. Right? The first step is A. It's the term antecedent. Antecedent. Well, what is an antecedent? Right? It's something that comes before. Something that happens before what we want to happen. If someone puts up a sign at an intersection of 2 highways that says stop, that is an antecedent of your behavior of stopping when you see that sign when you're driving up to it. Right? So there is an antecedent. There is a required behavior. There's something has to happen if we are going to get the results and the behavior we want to happen. I say to my students in school, my learners in my classroom, what do you need to be successful in this classroom? What do you need to be the learner you want to be? Make a list. And they'll do. They'll write it down. They need the support of their family. They need a computer that works. They need a good professor. Right? They need time. They need a place to do it which is peaceful and quiet. They need money to pay their tuition and fees. They make a list of the antecedents they need, right, to do well. What do your people need in your organization to do well? What do they need to succeed? What do they need to succeed? These are antecedents. Things that come before. And if you want your people to do the best that they can do, you should be providing them to every degree possible the things they need to do that. And you won't know unless you ask them. You won't know what they are unless you ask them what they need to succeed. And there's another step. You got to listen when they tell you. You got to read their list and pay attention. It can't become just another survey of employee morale put on the shelf and forget it. What do they need to succeed? I'll never forget this, and it's funny, and the man that it happened with, we still laugh about it. When I was first hired to teach at the University of Wisconsin in Oshkosh, I did a phone interview. And I passed the interview and I was hired. And I asked the chairman who was on the other end of the phone, will I be provided a computer by the university, or do I have to bring my own? And he said, no, we will provide you a computer. So I go to school, I walk in, I got a little office, I sit down with this computer, it won't work. So I call the help desk, and they send a technician over, and they take a look at that computer and says, my God, that won't work. It's not even compatible with university software anymore. That thing's out of date. I don't know where they got that, but it's useless. So I said to the chairman, this is my fault. Because I asked you if you would provide me a computer. I didn't ask you if you would provide me one that would work. And we laughed, and we got busy at the university and found one for me that would work. Okay? But what do we need to succeed? Those are antecedents. What do your children need to do the best they can do? What does your spouse need from you to be the best spouse she can be? Right? Or vice versa, to be the best husband he can be. What does he need from you? Right? We won't know if we don't ask. And it won't work if we don't listen. And it won't work if we don't take those things and try to provide them. Now, if we do that, then we have a right to expect the behaviors and the actions that we require, that we want. But one of the antecedents is to understand very clearly what is expected and what is desired. Just today, this morning, I got an email from a friend of mine in Indianapolis who was doing her work in the human resources department of this large company she works for, preparing for annual performance evaluations. Well, first of all, I despise the idea of an annual performance evaluation. I mean, if you wait 12 months to find out you were doing something wrong, guess what? You've been doing something wrong for 12 months. There ought to be a monthly performance evaluation. I'll talk more about how we do that. But and the way the thing's designed, it ought to be designed by the employee. Here's how you evaluate my work. I will provide you this list. If you want to change it, go ahead and then we'll talk. Then it's real. Then I have an antecedent that I understand. What if you are doing the best you can and you're producing something that they didn't want? Or in a format that isn't the one they wanted? All of this, you see, is an antecedent. The clarification of what is due, when it's due, who I have to work with, and so on, is an antecedent. I didn't know I had to go through 45 people to get this done. Why didn't you tell me that? I would not have wasted my time preparing all this. Right? Antecedents. Information is so often withheld, and it's so often the most important antecedent. Okay, so we've got all our antecedents. We want to now, again, move to the behaviors and actions that we want. Are they clearly understood? Can we list them with ways of measuring? Can we list them so that they are visible? Right? Visible, measurable. So that we know we are doing the right things. I tell my learners in my classroom and the people who are with me in training seminars all the time, when you go for a job interview or an interview for a promotion, and people are asking you all these questions and you answer them the best you can, one of those questions towards the end is going to be, do you have any questions? Here's what you should ask for sure. There may be more, but this you've got to ask. Yes, I have a question. How and by whom will my success be measured? What are you going to count? Who's going to count it and weigh it to determine whether or not I'm being successful in this company? Because I want to work for this company a long time. I want to move up in this company. I want to contribute to this company. I want to add value to this company. I want to know how I'm going to be measured and by whom. And how will they measure me? What behaviors? What actions? That's the B. Antecedents, behaviors. Make sense? Sure. Now, what are the consequences? C. A, B, C. A, B, C. By American Sign Language. Okay, the C, consequences. You know, every kid growing up knows what consequences are. Unfortunately, kids growing up think there's only one kind. Negative. And that's wrong. There are positive consequences. And there should be a lot of them. When someone does something well, there should be a positive, immediate consequence. A PIC, P-I-C. A positive, immediate consequence for that job well done. What in the world is an annual review all about? We're going to wait 12 months? No. It's daily, hourly. American business doesn't do it that way. We're so negative. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it came from guys wearing guns in the streets of the Old West, shooting the bad guy. I never saw a Western movie about raising people up and helping them, except maybe one version of Little House on the Prairie. Right? No, measuring the successes and providing a positive, immediate consequence for doing that. And you know what will happen if you do that? You're going to get a repeat. Now, what are you going to give them? I don't know. Ask them what they'd like. Public recognition. Some people say, no, I'll be embarrassed. Don't do that. I don't want to be an employee of the month. Give me a coffee cup or something, you know. Just tell me thanks. You will be amazed how many people will say, if I just got a thank you. The only time I hear from my supervisors is when they want to chew me out for something. Right? Positive, immediate consequences. Now, if somebody's doing something wrong, and there's no consequence, what did I just say? No consequence? Wrong. There can't be no consequence. If someone is doing something wrong and I don't do anything, there's a positive consequence. He's getting his way. He's getting to do what he wanted to do with no negative consequence. He's getting permission as a reward. And the other folks are looking around and said, well, he's coming in late, I'll come in late. No consequence. So doing nothing is a consequence. When somebody does something really well and nothing happens, why should they bother next time? Why can't they just go ahead and live and work in a world of mediocrity? We reward people for doing things well, and when they do things they should not have done, we privately address that issue. We privately address it. A negative, immediate consequence. Nick. Now, there's two kinds of nicks. We can take something away from them that they have, or we can give them something they don't want. Right? It may just be a warning. Maybe a letter in their personnel office. Maybe 5 days without work. You know, maybe a warning the next time you're out of here. I don't know what it is. Depends what they did. But it's not after a year. No. We are constantly reviewing our employees and our personnel and our people's performance based on something we agreed on that would be the measurements. I sit with Patricia and she tells me, this is how I want to be measured. This is what I can do. Here's some things I need to help me. And then I can evaluate her on this performance job, this performance sheet that we both signed. And I can evaluate her every month. And if I see a problem, I say, what can I do to help? Doesn't that make more sense than wait a year and then fire somebody? I mean, that's nonsense. No, it's nonsense. We got to reward everybody that's got it coming. I knew a man that held a sales contest one time for a whole bunch of people that were selling advertising in 3 TV stations and 2 radio stations that this company owned. The winner, at the end of the year, was going to get an all-expenses-paid trip to Hawaii for 2 weeks. All right? A year? If a sales contest works, why don't you hold one every month? If it's a good idea, why are you only having one a year? And why are you only having one winner? If I've got 40 employees and I only got one winner, I just created 39 losers. And there's not a loser in the organization. I wouldn't have hired them if they were losers. No, if we want to have a sales contest, talk to them and say, how do you want to handle your part of the contest? Increase in sales? Increase in retention? Or aren't you up to it right now? Let's figure out how you're going to be part of this and what we can do to reward your success. Picks and nicks. The ABC, the antecedents, behaviors, and the consequences. It's performance management. We don't reward our children enough and we punish them too much. We do not reward our employees nearly enough and we ignore them too much. And we get the results that we get. ABCs. We learned it in the first grade.